Today we will be discussing carbon monoxide's exposure limits and the agencies that set those limits. To start off, carbon monoxide, also abbreviated as CO, is a colorless, odorless, tasteless, and flammable gas produced as a byproduct of incomplete oxidation of carbon during combustion process, which includes any type of combustible engine that is fueled with carbon molecules present. This includes cars, trucks, buses, generators, and any other type of carbon-fueled motor. Small amounts of exposure to carbon monoxide can cause little to no harm for humans, but concentrated amounts exposed could be fatal. Carbon monoxide can enter the body by inhalation and by direct contact with skin or eye only in liquid form. The primary route of entry to the body is inhalation. The secondary route of entry is absorption only in liquid form through the skin, eyes, nose, which it's very rare to have it in liquid form. The organs targeted is the cardiovascular system, the lungs, blood, and central nervous system. The exposure limits are set by 3 different agencies. One of the agencies is the American Conference of Government Industrial Hygienists, which is abbreviated as ACGIH, is a scientific association that is private, non-profit, non-governmental, and is made up of industrial hygienists and other safety professionals with a dedicated promise to promote health and safety within the workplace. The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, also abbreviated as NIOSH or NIOSH, is a United States federal agency who collects worldwide data to conduct scientific research to promote new safety technology. Employees consist of engineers, hygienists, nurses, and many other diverse occupations. They also make recommendations on preventing workplace disease, injury, and disability. Occupational Safety and Health Administration, also known as OSHA, has a duty to carry out the Occupational Safety and Health Act. It also enforce, inspect, and create regulations for worker safety. They are a self-funded government agency with a very large jurisdiction. They can also press legal action against any employers who disregard OSHA regulations. They have a devoted promise to ensure worker safety by using and enforcing federal regulations. Carbon monoxide exposure limits consist of the threshold limit value, permissible exposure limit, and the recommended exposure limit. The threshold limit value, also abbreviated as TLV, is a level in which an employee can be exposed to a chemical substance or physical agent on a daily basis for a lifetime. The agency that provides the limit is the ACGIH, and they have a 8-hour time weighted average of 25 parts per million. And they also say an employee may exceed 3 times the threshold limit value for no longer than 30 minutes in a workday. And they also say that an employee should never exceed more than 5 times the threshold limit value. The permissible exposure limit is the legal limit for an employee to be exposed to a chemical substance or physical agent. OSHA provides the following carbon monoxide limit, and they set it at an 8-hour time weighted average at 50 parts per million. Another agency also provides a limit, which is NIOSH. They provide a same limit at time weighted average of 50 parts per million. Recommended exposure limit, abbreviated as REL, is not a regulatory requirement, but a recommended guideline for exposure limits. OSHA provides the following limits at a time-weighted average of 35 parts per million and a ceiling of 200 parts per million. The NIOSH also provides the same limits as OSHA for the recommended exposure limit for carbon monoxide. Some of the important things to remember when learning about carbon monoxide is the symptoms and the lethal limits, to where you never put yourself into a situation where you are exposed at a heavy concentration, or if you are, then you know the symptoms that go along with it. Some of the minor symptoms are headache, nausea, lassitude, dizziness, and some of the more severe symptoms are confusion, hallucinogens, cyanosis, depressed ST segment of electrocardiogram, and immediate danger to life or health, also abbreviated as IDLH, sets in a dangerous measurement at 1,200 parts per million of carbon monoxide. They say and said that 1 hour exposure to 1,000 to 1,200 parts per million would cause unpleasant but no dangerous symptoms. 1,500 to 2,000 parts per million might be a dangerous concentration after 1 hour, causing some major or minor symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning. The lethal concentration is that an employee would die within 1 to 3 minutes at 12,800 parts per million. Now we'll be discussing the summary of formaldehyde medical surveillance requirements. Formaldehyde medical surveillance requirements can be found in 29 CFR 1910.104.1048L, where it'll list the medical surveillance requirements for formaldehyde. This is a quick summary on the 9 requirements listed in the CFR. Employees covered. The employer shall make medical surveillance available for employees who develop signs and symptoms of overexposure to formaldehyde and for all employees exposed to formaldehyde in emergencies. The second requirement is an examination by a physician, where an employer must provide a physician at no cost to the employee or without loss of pay. The third requirement is the medical disease questionnaire, where have medical surveillance prompt if an employee is exposed to formaldehyde, and administer a medical disease questionnaire which must be determined by a physician. The fourth requirement is medical examinations. These medical examinations consist of a respirator fit test, a physical examination with emphasis on the evidence of irritation or sensation of the skin and respiratory system, shortness of breath, or irritation of the eyes. The fifth requirement is an examination for employees exposed in an emergency, which states that the employer shall make medical examinations available as soon as possible and have for any employee who is exposed to formaldehyde in an emergency. This is in more of your major cases at a very high concentration, where it's leading to major health effects. The sixth requirement is information provided to the physician. The physician will be a copy of this standard, a description of the employee's job duties related to exposure, the representative exposure level for the employee's job assignment, along with previous medical examinations. The seventh medical surveillance requirement is physician's written opinion. The employer shall obtain a written opinion from the examining physician. Any recommended limitations for the employee, a statement that the employee has been informed by the physician of any medical conditions. The employer shall provide a copy of the physician's written opinion to the affected employee. The eighth medical surveillance requirement is medical removal, which states that an employee must report any signs and symptoms of possible overexposure to formaldehyde and be evaluated by a physician, and it is the physician's duty to determine if the employee needs to be medically removed and taken into further. The ninth multiple physician review. The ninth medical surveillance requirement is the multiple physician review, which gives the employee the right to have a second opinion from a different physician And if the two physicians have different results, they must come together until the issue is resolved. If the second physicians cannot come to an agreement, then a third physician may be required to do further examining. Next, we'll be discussing air quality, carbon dioxide guidance. The air quality guidance can be guided by using CO2 detectors and indicators. An agency that provides this guidance is the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, or EPA, provides specific guidance on indoor air quality. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration also has indoor air quality inspection protocols to help guide the indoor air quality to safe conditions. Some of the indicators that can be used when indicating carbon dioxide is typically ambient carbon dioxide levels in urban settings are about 350 parts per million. When indoor CO2 levels rise to 1,000 parts per million, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning (HVAC) system should be evaluated, fixed, or replaced. When the CO2 levels are below 600 parts per million, employee complaints tend to diminish. Why CO2 is used as an indicator of poor indoor air quality. The HVAC system should filter, ventilate, and eliminate carbon dioxide to a safe CO2-free work environment. If the HVAC system cannot filter out the CO2, then the HVAC system must not be filtering out other toxins. If parts per million for CO2 is too high inside an office, then it is easy to determine that the HVAC system is producing poor indoor air quality. That is how CO2 can be used as an indicator for poor indoor air quality.